Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I really appreciate each and every one of you being here. I hope you find this webinar informational and I hope you enjoy it as well. And by the way, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them after the presentation. Again, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's get started. All right, today we're going to be talking about how to make sure your insurance covers a ransom event and, more importantly, how to avoid one in the first place. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them afterwards. So why the heck do you care what I have to say? So I've been in the IT arena for over 25 years and loved every bit of it, especially educating people about cybersecurity. So why am I the right person to talk to you about cyber insurance as it relates to cybersecurity, as it relates to cyber insurance? Well, being the owner of a managed security services company and working with small, medium, and enterprise companies for the last 25 years, I've gained a great deal of experience in dealing with and educating people about cybersecurity as it relates to risking and risks for clients. Again, our goal is to help reduce risk the best that we can. I've also produced over 20 training videos to educate people on cybersecurity awareness, and my passion and mission has always been to be able to reduce risk through the use of tools so that businesses can survive a cyber attack and continue with their business without being shut down for good. So a little bit about my story. I'm a co-founder of a successful multi-million-dollar MSSP business. Again, we support small, medium, and enterprise clients throughout the U.S. as well as other countries. And we also have built the business with a security focus. That's our main goal and focus. So as I stated a little bit earlier, my intention is to educate businesses, showing them how to reduce their risk of loss, and mainly loss of revenue, reputation, and also loss of their entire business. So my personal mission is to assist 1 million growing businesses in achieving greater profitability, security, and compliance through the strategic use of technology. So how do I do that? Our security team has audited over 1,000 networks in the last 12 months. So I can tell you where people are wrong when it comes to protecting themselves. I see it all the time. I see all the gaps that are in their network that they didn't see that themselves. And being able to make sure, if there was an incident, that their insurance policies would pay in the event of a breach. So before I get started, if you would do me a favor, I'm going to go over some steps that you can take to protect your business. So do me a favor, grab something to write with, and because I'll be sharing some valuable information that I think that you're going to want to remember. So please don't miss that. Okay, so what's going on here? Did you know that cyber insurance companies are losing money right now? So why is that? How can insurance companies possibly lose money? Now remember, the cyber insurance game is relatively new. And when insurance companies jumped into it, they saw an opportunity to be able to protect businesses and make some money, correct? Unfortunately, they didn't know what they were jumping into. They didn't know the expanse of what they had to cover. They thought it was an incident once in a while, rare occurrence, and so the liability on their side is really small. So again, they didn't realize what happened. So now that they jumped into the arena, all of a sudden there's all these claims and they're losing all kind of money. So what are they going to do about that? And again, their losses were significant, so they have to make some major changes. The money that they've paid out was unsustainable for them. So why is that? Increasing ransom risk. Increased response costs that are rising, replacement costs that are increasing, cybersecurity hygiene are inadequate, and incident response plans are almost non-existent. The main problem is that they're trying to mitigate the risk of business loss or business interruption. So I don't know if you knew this, but the average ransom payment in 2020 was $300,000. The average ransom payment are up 71% this year. In the first 6 months of 2022, it's up over $925,000 per incident. It's a lot of money that the insurance companies are paying, right? So it's not just ransomware that's affecting everything, which is obviously a high cost, and it's happening all the time, but there's another thing, and that is your email compromise. Business email compromise is one of the other major factors of the insurance companies having to pay off. Did you know that in 2020, 65% of organizations suffered a business email related compromise? 65%. In 2021, 77% of the organizations suffered business email compromises as well. As you can see, there's been a significant increase. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. So the FBI said that the amount of money lost to business through email compromise and scams continue to increase, with a 65% increase in identified global exposure losses between July of 2019 and December of 2021. So let me tell you a little story about a client of ours. It's a mortgage company. They contacted us and they said that their title company transferred $120,000 to one of their clients at the close of a sale of their house. Unfortunately, the client never received any money. So after some investigation, the title company said that the mortgage company's email was compromised. So we went in, did an extensive investigation over of their email system, of all the email accounts. Were there any compromises that might be seen within the organization? And we found nothing whatsoever. We did an extensive evaluation and analysis. We gave that information to the title company. They agreed that we were secure and that the mortgage company's email system was just fine. However, they did an investigation on their own email system. They found out the compromise happened on their end. So what happened was a hacker got in and was able to get access to their email account, was able to get access to a account that they were monitoring. And they saw that there was going to be a $120,000 transfer to a client from the title company. So as the title company sent an email with all the information to the client then responded with their routing number and their account number, all the information that was needed to transfer the money. But what happened is the hackers grabbed that email, changed the routing number, changed the account number, and then allowed it to proceed. So the title company then transferred $120,000 to the hacker's account and not the end user's account. So obviously there was a lot of problems with that, and the bottom line is the title company had to reissue $120,000, and that $120,000 was gone from the title company's finances. So it happens all the time. There's all kind of compromises that are going on that we deal with all the time. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a chart here. It's called showing about increasing risks that are going on. If you notice on the left side, on the impact side, there's low, medium, and high. And on the bottom, it's the likelihood, the low likelihood, moderate likelihood, and very high likelihood. Right now, with what's going on between ransomware and the email breaches and some other things that are going on, it's in the area of it's likely to occur and it's likely to be very severe. I'm not trying to scare you here. I'm just going by specific statistics that are out there. We all know it. We hear it in the news. We see it. We know people. We know other businesses that have had attacks. So it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. But right now, it's in the very high category, both in impact to the companies, and the likelihood of it being able to happen. Okay? So, with rising response costs and rising legal, security, and forensics costs, that's why the policies, that's why the insurance company's policies are going up and up and up. Every time there's an incident, a security response team has to be brought out. A forensics team has to evaluate it. There's legal experts that have to look at it if you're in an area or a company arena that is compliant with certain regulations and specifics, whether it's HIPAA or GLBA or NIST. You have to be compliant. You have to bring legal assistance in. So all of those costs are escalating every single day. The demand for people to do that, for forensics and security and investigators, are going up and up and up. The higher the demand, the more expensive it becomes. If that liability is on the insurance company, they're the ones that have to pay it. That's why there's increasing costs, and that's why they're losing money right now. Another area is replacement costs, the replacement of equipment. You have damaged hard drives that are encrypted that you can't decrypt, or you're wondering if there's some left behind malware that's sitting on the hard drives. You have to go through and replace all the hard drives and other things like that. The increased costs are tremendous. 44% of businesses now plan to increase their spend by 6%. 6% spend increases for cyber security prevention and cyber incident response or replacement costs. 1 in 4 businesses increased their IT spend in 2020 due to the recent security issues that are going on. We all hear about it. It's happening all over the place. Again, it's not if, it's going to be when, right? So one of the things that we find that's one of the biggest problems is what we call the inadequate cybersecurity hygiene. That's the end users, the end user responsibility, how they handle emails, how they respond to things, malware that they open up and allow to expand and start to work, or areas that they click on websites to where they're bringing in malware into a company's networks. And the reason that we're having a really large rise in that has to do with the home, people working from home. The area that we find the majority of the breaches occur in those home-based computers, and the reason is they are disconnected from a corporate network. Therefore, they're more vulnerable. They're not receiving the security protocols that would be if they were in the office, because they're at home. And some companies allow people to use their home computers, which they have no control over, no antivirus, malware, spyware, no anti-ransomware, no firewalls. And what's happening is that the breaches have just really escalated. Now, we understand that during COVID, there was a lot of changes that had to be made very, very quickly. And one of those were people had to work from home because businesses needed to keep running. The problem is that because of that, the cyber crime and cyber breaches have increased exponentially. And so there are things that you can do, and there are areas that you can look at to help mitigate that, to help prevent some of that from happening, to lock down that security, even if they are home-based user. Okay. Another problem is a lack of response plans. What a response plan is, if an event happens, here are the specific things that need to happen. Meaning that if an event happens, number one, you disconnect everything from the network. Number two, you call your IT company or your IT team out and let them know what's going on. You know, 3, you may or may not call your insurance company. If the breach is large enough, you're going to want to bring the insurance company in, and they'll send their investigators in as well. And then here's the phone number, here's the insurance company, here's the policy number. All these things are spelled out in an incident response plan. And that's one of the things that we do provide for every one of our clients is an incident response plan, because it's very important both for us and for the client to make sure that we get on top of it as soon as possible. We start investigating it. Where did it come from? Is the source still open? Do we need to close something down? All these type of things are spelled out in that. So that means that only 23% of businesses have that. That means 77% of the businesses do not have an incident response plan. That is something that I highly recommend that you have, that you can get. You can have your IT team take care of that. You can have your IT managed services company take care of that. We can help you with that as well. The main goal and the main purpose is to reduce your company's risk. When I say reduce risk, it's reducing risk in data exfiltration, number one, reducing the risk of being able to have your data and your client's data out in the wild somewhere for sale. But the biggest thing for us and our biggest focus is to reduce the risk of business interruption. What I mean by that is loss of revenue. Now, you're going to have to maybe pay the ransom. You're going to have to maybe pay a company to come out and do some security evaluations. But the big thing is that how much time are you going to be down? Our goal is to make sure that you're not down at all, that revenue continues to come in, even if there is a breach. So we're trying to make sure that that happens. So according to recent cybersecurity claims for small and mid-sized enterprise businesses, resulted in an average of about $343,000 in business interruption expense. That means that the average company through a breach loses about $343,000. Obviously, it can go way, way up from there depending on the size of your company. The goal is to reduce that risk so that does not happen at all whatsoever. So if you're an insurance company, what would you do? you would simply do a couple of things. You'd raise the premiums. You're losing money, you got to raise the premiums to get some money. The underwriters are going to tighten things down. So when you have cyber insurance, you fill out an application. On the application, there's a questionnaire. The questionnaire asks, do you have two-factor authentication? Do you train your employees about cybersecurity awareness? Do you do all of these things? There used to be about 6 to 8 questions when we first started. Now it's about 6 to 8 pages. Because what's happening is the insurance companies are moving the liability from them to you. They want to make sure that you're doing all these things so their risk is lessened or mitigated. So again, a standalone cybersecurity coverage increased about 92% in 2021. So again, raising prices. Now, what we also are finding out is that if you don't meet certain qualifications, meaning in the application, if you check no to something that they believe you should check yes to, we're finding that insurance companies are, one, absolutely not insuring you. If you don't have two-factor authentication, you will not be insured. And two, they're going to make sure that you comply to every aspect of that application. They're taking the liability from the insurance company back to the end user. So let me tell you another quick story. There was a lawsuit that happened here in Illinois, which is where we're located. It was with Travelers Insurance and another major company. And the major company had a significant breach, which means that there was a significant cost to the insurance company. The insurance company came out, did an investigation, reviewed everything, and they saw in the application that the end user checked the box that we use two-factor authentication. Well, it's true and it's not. They use two-factor authentication for their main application, but not for everything in their company. So the insurance company comes out and says, oh, you don't have two-factor authentication on your email. Oh, you don't have two-factor authentication on this other application. Oh, you don't have two-factor, and so on. So they said, we're not going to pay. You lied on your application. You said you had two-factor authentication. We're showing you that we do not, you do not, and therefore we're not going to pay you. The problem is that the company that the insurance company is not going to pay said, wait a minute, you didn't say in the application that we should have two-factor authentication on everything. Therefore, we're going to sue you. So it goes to court, and the Illinois court said, and they found for the Travelers Insurance Company that they, in their application, said, do you have two-factor authentication? Even though it didn't say on all things that you touch, it just simply said that one thing, do you have two-factor authentication, right? So the big company lost that lawsuit, did not get the money from the insurance company, spent a bunch of money in the lawsuit because they didn't follow through on everything that they were supposed to do, according to the judge. Again, you can go both ways with that, but just be known that if you don't do things that are specific to what you fill out in the application, then you most likely will not get paid. You need to know that and understand that. And it goes by case law. Because what's going to happen is the next time there's an incident, next time there's a lawsuit, they're going to refer back to this case and said, no, because of this, the precedent says that you don't have to save for everything. So what can you do as a business owner? You can make sure that you're covered. So make sure that you meet all the requirements and have cybersecurity. You also can make sure that you do things to help reduce the ransomware risk, to help reduce the response costs, to help reduce replacement costs, to help reduce cybersecurity hygiene, and make sure you have your incident response plans put together, and make sure that everything is in place, business continuity, which is your backup system. Make sure it's all in place so that you can mitigate the loss of business interruption and loss of revenue. So again, cybersecurity insurance is taking on the risk, but they've moved the liability to you to do certain things so that they can reduce their liability so that they can be more profitable in that area. But you need to understand something. If you just have regular business insurance or E&O insurance, it does not cover cybersecurity breaches. There might be a little bit in there that talks about some business loss or interruption that they might cover, but you got to remember, if you're not meeting certain standards, then you will not be covered, and then therefore you will not receive any payment from them. You need to go out, unfortunately, and I don't sell insurance, that's not what I'm trying to do. You need to go out and make sure that you're covered with a cybersecurity insurance plan, and then that you met all the requirements of that plan, so that in the event of an incident that you're going to have coverage. So I'm sure you ask yourself, you know, I'm running a small business. I don't think I need ransomware insurance. It's not going to happen to me. And, you know, I'm not those big names that are out there. I don't have anything that people want, but you do. You have money. You know, they encrypt all of the files on your network. You're going to pay the ransom. If they intercept some emails where you're money transferring, or they have a socially engineered email asking you or your accounting department to pay some bill and transfer some money, they're going to do it all the time. So if you think that you're a small business and that you never have any incidents because you don't see them in the news, that's not the case. So let me tell you another story. There was a small law firm, I mean really like a micro law firm, that only had 2 computers. And they received, and they got ransomware, not a client of ours, by the way. They received ransomware, and all of their data was encrypted. Now, they had some data in the cloud, which was good, but the majority of their data rested on those 2 computers. So even though there was 2 little computers, they were out of business for 7 days and had to pay a ransom. So they lost revenue and they had to pay a ransom. And for that small law firm, it was devastating. Especially they had to pay the ransom because all their client files and information were on one of those 2 computers, and they couldn't continue to do business without having that information. So it's not if, it's when. And this can happen to all sorts of businesses, to small businesses, to big businesses, businesses in the cloud, businesses that have servers on premise, businesses that don't even think that they even have any data that's worth anything. We're all subject to risk, ourselves included. And the main goal is educating and understanding that that risk is out there, that you need to do something to prevent that risk, that you need to know that you're in good shape, and that you need to know that if you do have cyber insurance and you do have a breach, that you will get paid. So again, you know, the worst part of everything is having to pay the ransom, but we're finding out that majority of the companies, including the large companies that you see in the news, the Colonial Pipeline and so forth, all paid a significant ransom. An independent survey of about 1,100 IT and cybersecurity professionals found that ransomware attacks hit about 80% of organizations in 2021. 80% of organizations in 2021. More than 60% of those that were hit by the attacks had to pay the ransom. So again, trying to reduce risk, reduce risk of having to pay for ransom, reduce risks of even getting a breach whatsoever, and certainly reducing risks of making sure that your revenue flow continues to happen. So again, everyone needs some type of cyber security insurance. So you have to make sure that you have a policy, make sure that that policy is up to speed, and that all the check boxes are being checked. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to contact us. We're here to help, here to answer questions, here to look at it. The other thing that we offer as well is a security risk analysis as it relates to cybersecurity and cyber insurance. Again, when we come in and do this, we will not have to have any administrative credentials. We do not install anything on your computers or your servers or your network. You do not have to involve your IT company, you know, or your IT people. You can if you want, and that's fine. It's nothing secretive here. However, the hackers don't contact the IT people and say, hey, we're going to hack you now, so just letting you know it's going to happen this week, so keep an eye on it. That's not the case. You come in unaware. It's going to evaluate and look at all the risk areas of your network. We're going to evaluate those risks and figure out what to do. So again, this is something that we're going to offer to a select group of people. We do not install any software, and again, we do not need any credentials. One of the things that we do once we run the analysis, we'll simply send you a simple tool that you can run on your network. Again, it does not install anything on the network. It just runs on the network. Once we get the information, We'll meet with you and review the results, and then we'll give you some simple steps that you can take to protect your data. All we're going to do is identify some gaps that are there to make sure that you're in compliance, make sure that you meet your insurance requirements, and it's just good practice to make sure there's not some gaps or some holes. We'll do some penetration testing from the outset. We'll look at it holistically. Again, we will not make any changes, or we do not even have access to your network. We just need to be able to analyze it and sit down so that you know and understand where your gaps are at and what you need to do to remediate them. Again, our goal is to help protect 1 million businesses, and we can do that through being able to communicate with people, being able to educate people, and having some tools to be able to do that. So I'm sure you're asking yourself, what's the catch? And there's just a little one. We can't do this for everyone. We will only be able to do 5 assessments this month to include up to 5 computers per business. Anyone after the first 5 who sign up will simply put you on a waiting list, or you can pay us for the assessments. We usually charge anywhere between $2,500 and $8,500 for this type of analysis. So why am I doing this for free? Again, our security team is on a mission to provide and protect 1 million businesses. So if you have any questions or you want to reach out to us, you can send me an email at mark@strykernetworks.com, or you can click on the QR code or go to our website, fill out a form, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you and set something up. Again, you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and make sure that you're getting all the information that you need to see whether or not your network is secure. So if you would just click on this and have us do that analysis, we would be happy to help you. Again, it's only for 5 companies. That's all we can handle for this month. And again, it's free. There's no charge. And we'll be happy to sit down and show you where your gaps are at. Once you find out where they're at, we can give you some direction how to remediate that as well. So again, thank you for attending today's webinar. I hope you found it informational. I hope it was of value to you. Our next one is going to be on September 15th. We're going to be talking about, and the title is, What Worked Yesterday Doesn't Work Today, with the ever-changing world of cybersecurity. So we're going to discuss that, go into a little bit more detail with that, and hopefully that we can see you then as well. So again, thank you for participating today. Thank you for being there. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and in just a minute, I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Again, thank you, and have a great day. All right, I appreciate you guys for being on the call. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a few questions that have come through, and I'll be happy to go through them. One question says, if I think there might be a breach, do I have to notify my insurance company immediately, or can I have my IT company or IT department fix it first? The answer is it depends. So, the first thing I would do is notify your IT department or IT company and have them do a quick analysis and have them look at the degree of the breach. Was it 100%? Was it 2%? It really depends. If the breach was small enough, and if the ransomware was in a reasonable amount of money that you'd be willing to pay, let's say if it was ransomware, you might make a business decision that says it's less expensive for us to notify our insurance company, and so we're going to go that route, or it's less expensive that we're going to have our IT company just kind of take care of everything. We'll pay the ransom. So it really is going to depend. If you're in a regulated industry like HIPAA, and it's over a certain amount of exfiltrated client or patient files, you have no choice but to notify the HIPAA organization and then notify your insurance company, because there's going to be a significant cost. Remember, every time there's a breach, you need to look at and refer to your business response or your incident response policy, because it's going to name out, here's what we do, step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's who we contact. Here's the name of the insurance company. Here's their phone number, blah, blah, blah. And so that allows the remediation and the halting of all the exfiltration of information to happen much more quickly. If it's all of a sudden you find out something's going on, and this person tells that one, and the next person tells the next one, they're like, what do we do? I don't know. Who should we call? I'm not sure. meanwhile, all of that data is either being exfiltrated out of your system, or your ransom is continuing on. That's going to be a higher cost at the end. So that's how I would answer that. You're gonna have to evaluate it, one incident at a time. If it's one computer one time, I don't think you're gonna want to notify your insurance company. The key part of this is that if you are not in compliance with your application that you filed with your insurance company, you're more than likely not going to receive any funds or any money from the insurance company. And we've been getting more and more of our clients' renewal insurance coming through saying, hey, there used to be 6 questions, now it's 6 pages, now it's a whole addendum document. And there's more and more and more questions, again, transferring the liability from the insurance company back to the end user. And so we have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and say, okay, these 3 things you are not currently doing. They're new from last time. So here's what we need to do to get in compliance. And if you don't do that, for the most part, the insurance companies will not, give you a policy. So anyhow, that's how I'd answer that question. Just be cognizant of that, because you don't want to rest at night and say, oh, I feel good. We have a cybersecurity insurance policy. We're all good to go. If something were to happen, they're going to pay. It might not. And if you don't know where your gaps are at and you don't know how to find them, again, we'll be happy to help you out with that. Great. Another question. Can Stryker help us navigate the cyber policy to help us save money and make sure that we are in compliance? And the answer is absolutely we can. Again, more of what I was just saying. We can go through, we can run a risk assessment, a cyber insurance risk assessment against your company. Again, we'll do that for a handful of clients each month. And we'll do up to 5 computers. So we'll kind of look at everything and evaluate what's going on with that, and give you some idea of where your gaps are, where the holes are at that need to be filled, so that when you fill out the application, that we're answering the questions on the application properly. So let's see here. Does my cyber insurance policy cover my business interruption, or is this a separate policy? Again, it depends on the policy. The ones I've seen, they do have a certain amount in there for business interrupted insurance. There we go. Easy for you to say. And between some of your E&O, which might help pay some of that, the cyber insurance policy does have that in there. Most of them do, at least all the newer ones do, because they know there's going to be an interruption. There's going to be a loss of business. Our main goal is to make sure that your business stays up and running. And what I mean by that is that if there was an incident, how much revenue is a business going to lose? And if we can mitigate that, if we can keep the business going and at the same time, take and segment out the issues that are happening from the breach and allow them to continue to grow and run their business, that's our main objective. Yes, there's a problem with if it gets out in the press and reputation and clients' data that's exfiltrated and lost. And there's an issue with that. And that's important as well. But we found out that the number one reason and the number one concern for the C-level people in an organization, as well as IT managers, is we do not want an interruption in our revenue stream. We need to do everything that we can to mitigate any type of downtime or loss of business. We need to continue to run like we always run. And so that's the focus for us, is to make sure that through technology, through tools, that we can be able to help companies continue to maintain a level of not just compliancy, but also revenue. It's really important. Okay. Let's see here. How does Stryker suggest dealing with ransomware attack? Do you suggest paying the ransom? That's a good question. You'd be surprised. The majority of the ransom attacks, even though you have good backups and good ways of recovering, you're still going to be down for a period of time recovering that data. And you still have to go through and do some other things as it relates to replacing hardware to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
I had somebody that suffered a ransomware attack that said, you know what, now that we've done this, we've mitigated everything, we cleared everything up. I don't want to go through the additional expense of replacing hard drives and other things. I think we're good now. We paid the ransom and we're good. And lightning never strikes twice. Well, in the cyber arena of attacks and hacks and breaches, it happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times. That's what they're banking on. They're banking on you paying the ransom, you making some changes, their malware still in there, and then they reactivate it again sometime down the road, and they get more money from you. So we suggest most of the time, again, it depends on the size of the breach. It depends on who we're working with the insurance company, if they send out a security specialist. And it's also a decision made by the owners of the company that, whether we pay the ransomware or not. We find out that most of the time ransomware is paid, that money is paid, which is extortion. It goes against every part of my being a former law enforcement officer. I just don't like, criminals trying to, hold me ransom for anything. So, but from a time standpoint and a loss of business and keeping things running while you're going through the process of replacing and making sure that the malware's not in there, it might not be a bad idea. Okay. One last question. Is my cyber insurance no, that's not it. If I fill out a questionnaire, that this is the insurance questionnaire. If I fill out the questionnaire to the best of my ability and I am incorrect, or if things change over the years, does this void my policy? It's going to depend on the insurance company's evaluation of whatever breach that you had. For the most part, when you say, do you fill out the form to the best of your ability, that means that you should involve your IT company or your IT department in filling that out. We used to see the CEOs, the CFOs, and the CIOs just fill it out without really running it past the IT departments, and realize that they thought, or what they assumed was happening, truly is not happening, or what they assumed is happening, like two-factor authentication. They're finding out that that yes, there's two-factor authentication on a few areas, but not in all of them. And they thought, oh, I thought we were fully protected. You talk to your IT people, they say, no, not really. We are partially. It's a yes and it's a no. Well, the insurance company is going to look for any excuse that they can not to have to pay the end user. The reason being is because the amount of money that's being paid out by the insurance companies is unbelievable, and they're losing money, and they need to stop the bleeding. So they need to transfer the liability from them to you, and they need to make sure that all your ducks are in a row. So they find anything that they can put their finger on of not having to pay you, they're going to do that, which I understand. The cost of the policies are really skyrocketing. It is a little bit out of control, but so is all the cyber crime. It's way out of control as well. All right, one last question. How long does it take to do an assessment? It's going to depend. So here's how that works. We will send you a link. You'll run that link. And again, it does not install anything on the computer or on your network. Again, we do not need credentials for that. You'll click on the link. It'll run a scan of the computer. It'll do it in the background. Again, it doesn't install anything. So when it's finished, it's done. That information goes to a secure server, allows us to be able to analyze it, and then it creates reports, which looks at many, many different areas for gaps in your network. It looks for local gaps on the local computer. It looks for gaps from the outside coming in as a penetration test, and some behaviors, some software that's in there, patches, all of that. It's going to look at that. Also looks at your M365, your Microsoft Office 365, on looking at the security on that. Is there two-factor authentication? Are there too many administrative accounts? Are there a bunch of licensing that's not being used anymore, and therefore there's still some username and password attached to it where the hacker can come in? It looks at a lot of your VPN settings on your firewalls and things like that, because that's what happened to the Colonial Pipeline on the East Coast that shut all the gas delivery on the East Coast, was because there was a rogue account a VPN account sitting in there where the person had been gone for almost 2 years. And because the procedure didn't say, remove them from Active Directory, remove them from here, remove them from there. But they didn't have it in there to remove his name and password from the VPN. Therefore, it sat in there. That's what was hacked. Once they got in, they moved laterally across the network, and they were able to gain administrative control over it, and therefore be able to ransomware shut things down and so forth. So, kind of a long-winded answer, but it takes as much time as it takes you to click on a link and run it on 5 computers. So really, it's not on our side, it's on their side. So I would estimate about 5 to 7 days when it's all said and done, by the time we set up an appointment and review everything with you and all that. Again, we're not looking to remediate. We're just simply advising you what you have and what you don't have. That's all we're looking at doing. And so if we can help in that area, help find your gaps, help you secure things, that's our number one goal. Again, education is key as well. And so I'm going to continue to do the best I can to put these webinars out there to help educate people that are interested. We do one about twice a month, and I'll continue to put my effort in, and I hope that you find that there's a value to what we're doing. Again, we're just starting this up, so give me some grace on how I present and communicate. It will get better the more I do it. Again, it's a really good education tool. So again, thanks everybody for attending. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your questions, and I'll see you on the 15th for our next one. Have a good day. Thank you.